Hello and welcome back to the AI Ethics Now podcast. My name is Tom Ritchie and I'm really pleased to be joined today by Pip Armstrong. Hi, Pip.
Hi, Tom. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
I wonder, Pip, if you could tell us a little bit more about your role and what brings you to this discussion on AI, please.
Absolutely. I work at Nottingham College as a digital innovation development coach, which means that I get to work with staff, tutors, curriculum staff on all things edtech, basically. And AI is my new favourite thing to talk about.
It must be a really interesting time for you in your role, particularly with this proliferation of AI and usage amongst staff and students and trying to understand, I guess, where the bounds of that are, because obviously it's quite up in the air, it feels at the moment, with what AI can be used for, what it can't be used for, and how to give both students and staff that critical understanding about the some of the challenges perhaps that come with AI as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a minefield and there are lots of rabbit holes. But at Nottingham College, we've chosen to go down a particular route. We've sort of drawn our line in the sand, if you like. And I'm quite proud of where we are and where we've got to in such a short time since AI kind of exploded into the world of education. So it's really nice to be able to talk about that today.
Yeah, fantastic. And I wonder if thinking about that line in the sand that you've mentioned, we'll get straight into the first question, which is what strategies can teachers and students use to ensure ethical AI adoption in education?
Okay, so at Nottingham College, we're not claiming that we've got all the answers or that we know it all. And I am not an official AI expert. I'm just someone who is really, really passionate about it. Um, we're promoting a culture of mindful AI use at Nottingham College. So the three sort of boundaries, if you like, the three things that we're really focusing on is transparency, support, and education, both for staff and students. So we've made a conscious decision to embrace generative AI at Nottingham College rather than tiptoeing around it or pretending that it doesn't exist or trying to ban it. We've said, okay, we like what it can do, but we need to approach it for our students' sake and our staff's sake in an ethical and responsible way. So, as I mentioned when I first introduced myself, we have this team of DIDCs, of which I'm fortunate enough to be one. So, we guide faculty areas, we guide our staff as to how they could integrate AI into their practice. So, we don't want to leave anybody to negotiate AI on their own or to just sort of throw platforms or tools at them and just leave them to get on with it. Personally, I think that's quite a dangerous approach. You need to hold people's hands when it comes to AI, particularly in the beginning. So, we've implemented a sort of training program to equip our staff with the skills and knowledge that they need to make use of these tools. So, on our rolling CPD program, for example, we have run introductory sessions on AI tools. We have created sessions where we're looking at differentiation using AI in the classroom. We've done sessions on how to create more AI, not proof, but robust assessment. So to try and stop students from using too much AI within their assessments. And sometimes we just do drop-in sessions where staff can get their questions answered. So that's ongoing. And then also every faculty within our college has a dedicated DIDC who can provide guidance at any time on anything to do with AI. So that's one of the things that we're doing. The students are crucial in this conversation as well, because obviously a huge number of them have discovered AI and are using it in lots and lots of areas of their lives. So we feel it's part of our responsibility to guide them into doing this properly, ethically, mindfully, and responsibly. So we're trying to encourage them to see AI as a bit of a personal tutor in their pocket, if you like, a powerful one and one that needs to be approached with care. We use a bit of an acronym with our students. We ask them to ACE AI, with ACE being approach cautiously and ethically. We're seeing different kinds of use. We're seeing some students using AI in a very positive and very productive way to enhance their learning, to help organize their time, etc. Really good stuff. But then we're also seeing some students who are using it in a less positive way who are cutting and pasting AI generated content and then submitting it as their own, which of course all educational establishments will be experiencing. But at this juncture, we've said, okay, we need to show them how to use it properly rather than letting this continue. So as I said earlier, our college, one of the things with our college-wide approach is this transparency. So we're saying if an AI tool is being used in the classroom, everybody should be aware of it. Teachers shouldn't be hiding from students if they've used AI to create a resource or to create a lesson plan. Everybody should be aware of it, because that allows those conversations, those open conversations to take place naturally, and for everybody to be aware of the pros and cons that are around AI. So we don't want to hide from the reality of it. We're embracing it, but we want everybody to be open about it. We put a strong emphasis on data privacy, and we actively educate our staff and students about being really careful with organizational and personal data when they're using AI tools. And we also we like the tools that offer commercial data privacy. There are a few out there, and that's something that the college are really positive about. We also have to be a bit careful because we are a college with some younger students, so we've got 16 to 19-year-olds. So we make sure that we observe and enforce age limits as well, where generative AI platforms have. So that's another sort of rabbit hole that you can end up going down, but it's an important one to address. So in short, we're really excited about it, but we don't underestimate the human judgment element. We must always have a human in the loop. Our teachers are always in the driving seat, and we want them to use AI as a tool to enhance their superpowers, if you like, never to replace their expertise and experience.
I think it's a really interesting reflection on what you're doing at Nottingham College, and something that a lot of colleagues perhaps can learn from. I think the approach that you're taking, it speaks of almost trying to create this literacy around using AI that is not just for students but is also for staff. And I love the move to actually encourage staff to say it's okay to use it, but just be open and transparent about how you're using it and to what extent in the classroom. I really like the ACE approach as well. So approach cautiously and ethically. I think that's a really nice way of thinking about it. It's very, very simple and a really useful mnemonic. I think your point about data privacy is also something that perhaps gets misunderstood by, I'm going to say students, but I'm going to speak for students and staff, I suppose. But sometimes when students can use these things, you put so much data in and you think, have you read the terms and conditions? Are you entirely sure that this AI tool is a place that you'd want to be putting your data? There are challenges with different ethical values that some of these platforms have, where how are they using data, where are they getting it from, how are they monitoring it? There's so many other questions that students and staff perhaps won't get into, but they need to consider in a way, just to understand that this AI platform here is slightly more ethical than that one and has slightly better energy usage. And it's a challenge, I think, with all innovations. So AI is the current innovation, but actually, if you think back, perhaps when I went to university, Google was just becoming more popular, and so that was seen as the innovation of, this is going to ruin how people learn and write essays, and Wikipedia was a factor then as well. And if you go back before that, there was the move from handwriting essays to typing them on computers in the 90s, which was seen as quite challenging for plagiarism as well. And so these kind of questions around how do we ethically use innovations, they extend beyond AI. But I wonder if you've got any reflections on perhaps how we can balance the innovation of AI with these ethical considerations that come up.
Yeah, it's a narrow path for sure, but again, I'm quite proud of what we're doing at Nottingham, in that we are taking some firm steps to ensure that we do use AI ethically and responsibly, but we don't get left behind on that innovation. So I've already mentioned our emphasis on data privacy, so that's one thing. About a year ago, actually, which we were quite ahead of the game by doing it that early, but we published a set of AI guidelines. So exclusively written by my boss at the time. We did a set for students, and we did a set for teachers, trainers, and assessors within our college. So these aren't static documents. They're not gathering dust on a shelf. They're organic, because the tech is moving so fast that we're having to keep them as something that's very movable. They're on our intranet. We tell everybody about them. So as soon as somebody new joins us, whether that's a student or a staff member, one of the first things, as soon as I come across them anyway, they get told about the AI guidelines. We've made sure that they're really clear, really comprehensive, and really accessible for everyone. They form, if you like, the cornerstone of our approach to the whole thing. So that's something that we build. Everything comes from those guidelines. As I said earlier, we've got this rolling program of staff training. That's also part of how we balance innovation with ethics. And in having those close relationships with our staff members, we're able to keep ethics at the forefront of our conversations. So if anybody has worries or concerns about the ethics of a tool that they might be using, or questions about the tool, then we are there. We're a face. We're not just someone at the end of the phone that they could talk to. We're someone who's sitting with them, so they feel much more able to share those worries and concerns. And quite a lot of staff do have some worries and concerns around AI. The other thing I like to do is to actively seek out people who aren't particularly keen on AI, because I think that throws a different thing into the mix. They'll always ask the more awkward questions, and the ones that perhaps someone who's as passionate about it as me hasn't thought of, because I'm trying to be so positive about it. So seeking out the awkward stuff, I think is really, it gives you really rich feedback and gets you thinking about things. Students wise, we're really keen on making sure that we've provided resources with them so that they can learn how to use AI properly. So as I said, we've got the guidelines, we're talking to them, but we've also got videos, documents, articles. We want to be really sort of loud and proud about AI and say, this is what it can do for you, but you need to be careful of it as well. So we want them to take responsibility for whatever they submit. They need to have that ownership and take responsibility for their work. So whether or not they've used AI or not, we want them to be open about what it is they're doing. We've created referencing guidance as well for them around AI, which again is something that we realized by talking to our students that they didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to be open about what they'd done. So we searched around, had a good chat with lots of other people in a similar boat to ours, and we've created a set of referencing guidance. We use the Harvard referencing style, but we've now got some very clear guidance on how exactly you reference that. So we really do see AI as a force for good. I hope you can hear how passionate I am about it, but as with all things, there needs to be balance, and we must make sure that we avoid that over-reliance on AI, and we want to keep our humans at the centre of everything that we do. As I just touched on there, we work really closely with other organisations to help us. It can feel a little bit like you're the only one that's fallen down a rabbit hole sometimes around AI, but you have to remember that all educational organisations, we're all in a similar boat, if not the same one, and the further education world loves to share. So there are lots and lots of forums and groups, and we work with organisations like JISC to help share good practice and to sort of help address things as they crop up. The age of consent thing being something that's come up quite recently. It was an afterthought. The initial excitement around the AI platforms got so momentous, so big, I think nobody worried about age for a bit. And now all of a sudden everybody's kind of going, hang on a second, what about age of consent? What about parental consent? How old do we need to be? How do we get that? What does that look like? So there you can feel quite isolated, but we're in a really good place with working with our neighbours and sharing resources. Looking beyond the college itself, another thing that we try and do to balance both innovation with ethics is to involve the people at home. So we are in the process at the moment of putting together a package of what you need to know about AI for parents and caregivers. So we want to make sure that they know what we're doing in college to make sure that any AI use that's happening is in a safe and responsible way. And we also want to kind of get them involved with what their young people are doing when they're using AI at home. Another thing that we've got in the pipeline is we're developing an AI assessment scale. So this is something it's going to be big. It's much needed. So it's going to be coming out soon, but it's going to give some real clarity to both staff and students around exactly how far, if you like, they can go down the AI road. So it's really clear, really simple. We're going to be able to say, for this assessment, there's absolutely no AI use allowed, but then it'll go up in scales, and it goes up in up to 5. So you might have an assessment that's entirely full use of AI is allowed, because that's part of the assessment. That interrogation with an AI tool might be what is being assessed, that critical thinking, given you might get some output that they're going to critically assess, or what have you. So I think that's going to be really, really helpful. It's something that students want, because there's lots of anxiety and stress with students about what they can and can't do, and are they going to get caught out, or are they going to get penalised, or worrying about getting themselves in trouble. Not all of them. A lot of them are trying to get away with what they can, but there are also some who are wanting to use AI, but only within certain guidelines. So I think that's going to be a really big step for us in our journey to integrate AI ethically into college life.
It's really interesting to see how you've engaged with students, but obviously working in FE, those who are at home as well. That's a step that perhaps in higher education I've never considered. I don't really think I've heard before about how do we communicate with parents about the ways in which we're using these tools and supporting their children or those that they're caring for to use these tools again in an ethical way. I really like the idea as well of almost situating AI a little bit within that realm of the hidden curriculum that we're always trying to eradicate. Of students don't necessarily know how to reference that they've used it, how to even talk about it, because I think the reflex from a lot of universities and other colleges was initially just absolutely not. AI is not something we're going to use. And so that makes people go, oh, well, I won't tell anyone that I've used it then, even if you've not used it in a way that would perhaps infringe on the rules of where you're learning. So I think it's really interesting the work you're trying to do around getting rid of that mystery, actually, around how do we reference AI that we've used it, how do we talk about it, how can we bring it into assessments, because it feels very much like there are some times where I think, well, we all know that people are using it, but we don't talk about it, and then it's almost a see no evil, hear no evil kind of way of approaching AI, which is perhaps not the best way to do it when we're trying to teach people to be critical thinkers of tomorrow and to be kind of future enabled citizens. We want them to be able to ask these questions and to be able to understand, okay, you can use AI and this is how you use it, but actually here are some of the wider ethical challenges around using it in terms of data usage, data privacy, and actually you can be prepared for some of that in whatever field you go into, whether you're going into, history, chemistry, whatever else, or whatever it is that you're planning to do. You've mentioned a lot actually about some different steps that people can take, but I wonder if you would be happy to maybe speak a little bit more about some further steps that you think that we could take to prepare students and faculties for this kind of AI augmented or AI enabled future.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're focusing very much on developing our students' transferable soft skills, like problem solving, creative thinking, and emotional intelligence, areas where humans, we've still got the advantage over the machines, and hopefully that stays the case. We don't want to get so caught up in AI that we forget how important human connection is. Generative AI is becoming involved in all areas of our lives. So I think as our responsibility as educators has actually never been more important. I don't feel that we're preparing our students for the job market anymore. We're preparing them for a world where they won't always know the difference between something that's human and machine generated. And I think that's actually we've got an enormous job to do, and that's quite a responsibility. So I don't feel that it's something that belongs to any one area of the college. I think we've got to weave this AI literacy that you mentioned earlier into the very fabric of everything we do. It should be a college-wide mission. It should be embedded into everything, because AI is going to be embedded in everything. So within our faculty areas, we've got some tutors who are using AI within the classroom, as we mentioned earlier. We've got things like tutorial sessions where we've got forums and discussions going on around the ethics of AI, and things like deep fakes and misinformation and disinformation, and we can tie that in with all sorts of really interesting discussions, the elections and things like that. It's students are really loving having these discussions. We've got our libraries working on sort of transforming digital literacy, helping our students to become more discerning consumers of technology. So not just passively accepting what it is they're getting, what it is they're seeing, but actually that applying that critical thinking to everything and asking questions about it. It's not just about teaching them to spot fake news or to identify a picture that might be AI generated, but we want them to have a bit more of a deeper understanding of AI, that it's not magic, it's maths and data, and we want them to spot that it's got biases, that it's got limitations, and to basically question everything that it gives them. So we think if they've got their sort of AI tinted glasses on, they can see those influences around them, and they can understand how they work, and they can actually learn how to critically evaluate them. So I think for us as an organisation, we're saying to everybody, it's not just one person's job. It's not just a digital innovation coach. It's not just the library. It's everybody. We've all got a part to play, and that's where the transparency comes in, because we are all talking about it. So it's sort of flowing in. It's flowing in nicely because there's so many conversations going on about it.
How successful has that been for you in terms of encouraging that institution-wide discussion? Because I think there will be many out there, myself included, who I'm very keen on AI, like you. I have colleagues who I know are very keen, but I have a large section of colleagues who just will not go near this discussion, and they see that AI has absolutely no place, which is a legitimate viewpoint, but one that I think people will be wanting to challenge perhaps in their own spaces.
Yeah, I would agree. We've got a mixed bag. So we've got a lot of people who are very passionate about it. We've got a lot of people who are a little bit intimidated and a bit daunted by it, which is where our rolling program of training is helpful. It is just literally ongoing, and I don't think we can ever do enough of them, because we've got a large staff cohort, but we have got some people who are passionately against all things AI. So as an organisation, we've said to our tutors, you don't have to use AI for your own practice if you don't want to. That's absolutely fine. But what we have said is that everybody does need to have an awareness of it from the student point of view. So even if for their own practice they think it's not appropriate or not ethically, doesn't sit well with them, okay, that's absolutely fine. As you say, it's a very valid viewpoint. But the young people that are in your classroom are almost certainly thinking about it or dabbling with it. So you do need to have an awareness of it at the very least.
And I think there's a really interesting space that we may get to where, if I think about the assessments and assignments that I set, particularly on an AI module, I encourage students to use AI, but there is potential for a student to say, almost on a conscientious objective ground, I'm not using this because I know the challenges that come with using AI, and there are potential questions there in the future around how do we prepare for that? How do we prepare for a student to come in and say, great, I'm not going to use it because of XYZ challenge and because of the bias and because of myriad other reasons. We know that there are ethical considerations around AI. I wonder if at this point you'd be able to share any practical examples of AI implementation and its impacts.
Yeah, so I can share a few things that we've got going on. The first one that springs to mind is English classes. We do GCSE resits at Nottingham College, and the creative writing element is often something that lots of students struggle with. But they'll be given in their exam, they'll either be given a picture or they'll be given a title of a something they've got to write a piece of creative writing about. And it's something that I know teachers struggle with, because they'll hunt around for a picture that they like. They have to worry about royalties and stock images, etc. And they'll give a picture to a student and they'll ask them to write creatively about it. And if that picture doesn't resonate with that student, or that student just doesn't like the picture, they are not going to get engaged with that task. Whereas what I've seen some tutors doing is spending a few minutes of a lesson, not a massive amount of it, but enough, getting students to create their own AI images and then having them write about it. So that is a game changer, because they get really, really excited about doing that, even if they don't want to be, even if they don't mean to be. the fact that they are now writing about something that they've created that's come out of their own mind, that's something that is really, really powerful. Tutors are using AI as a bit of a teaching assistant in its own right. So getting ideas from AI on how to deliver things in a different way, in a more engaging way, not necessarily a more technical way, because they might not be using AI for the task itself, but they've just got an idea of how they could deliver something in a different way, in a more engaging way. And I've had teachers who've been teaching for a long time, and they usually deliver something in a certain way, and perhaps they feel like it's gotten a bit stale, or they've done it so many times that they've lost their passion for it. If AI has given them a slightly different perspective or a different way to deliver it, they feel rejuvenated. They get really excited and really passionate again, and that comes out in the teaching, and that that rubs off on the students. So that's something that's been really, really nice and refreshing to see. People who have left their comfort zone way behind and gone, I've been doing this way for the last 20 years, but AI gave me this idea to do it a different way, and wow, it's changed things. So that's really exciting. Another thing would be where we've seen students actually just taking charge of their own learning. They can break stuff down. We encourage them, if they're struggling with a concept, to get AI to simplify it for them, or to tailor it so that their own neurological needs are being met. So I do find that students are quite self-aware with what works for them and what doesn't. And if they can use an AI chatbot to put something into a context that makes sense to them, then they're going to take that content on board much better. And it's giving them the responsibility for their own learning, which again it's just so refreshing to see. They're being much more active in the process rather than just passively being given something that they just don't understand. But the best one I think so far that I've seen is where tutors have they've gotten an AI to create perhaps an essay for them, and they might have done multiple ones, and then they give it out to the students and get the students to critique it, because they absolutely love spotting the fact that it's got something wrong, or it's bias, or there's a reference that's not right, or there's an Americanized spelling. That lesson that AI is not always right, or that they can't always trust it, that lesson just, it happens by itself. Nobody needs to say anything because they've spotted it. Not only are they getting to look at an essay and just sort of get more of a feel for how an essay looks, they're getting to spot for themselves that actually AI isn't infallible, and there are things, and they love finding where it's got it wrong. So that's really exciting.
And I think they're really good examples of how can encourage students to be critical without having to say, think critically.
I think one of my favourite quotes is by Jeremy Kahn, who I'm reading his book at the moment called Mastering AI, and there's a quote in there that just says, AI's superpower is its ability to enhance, not replace, our natural gifts. And I think that sums it up for me. It's here to help us all become a bit more super on days when perhaps we might not naturally be super, but ultimately it's enhancing what we've already got rather than replacing it.
Fantastic. And I think that's a lovely way to sum up the podcast. Thank you so much, Pip. It's been really, really interesting to talk to you and learn about the work you're doing at Nottingham College. Good luck with it all. And I'm definitely going to be in touch with you to look at some of the things that you've written and the resources that you provide for students and staff. Thanks so much, Pip.
Thank you for having me.